Recording in progress.
Just getting my setup here.
Um,
Good morning.
Hi, folks.
Good morning.
Good morning. We wait for some time for Alex and others to join. Oh, hi, Tom. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Logan looking sharp, man.
I have to apologize. I had some meetings this morning where I had to wear a tie.
I don't think any apologies necessary. You're raising the bar for all of us.
I'm usually more of a casual guy, you know. But thank you anyway. It's good to see you, and good morning, everybody.
Good to see you.
Hi, Logan.
Last time I showed up on a video call wearing a tie, somebody had just said, "Hey, good luck on your interview today."
I
Yeah, you can
actually
say that.
regret that the tie is like completely gone out of business culture. I've got a closet full of them that I can't use anymore.
The banking and finance people, they still they respect it. I don't know if they
Yeah.
all still wear it, but they respect it. So I like to come in and set the bar high, and then we'll go down from there. You know, if they're rolling up their sleeves, I'm taking it off. You know, so.
Exactly.
Capitol Hill is still a ties
That's
mandatory.
right.
Yeah, so is Japan.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Good morning.
so my last job was with Hitachi, and that's where I built up my closet full of ties. And now working in tech in the US, they're no longer useful.
He's now in a hoodie.
Exactly.
Love it,
I
Alex.
pulled out with my ties post COVID, and I realized that they were like it'd been so long they're actually out of style. And I was like, oh,
Shruti, do you want to run the agenda today? Do you want me to?
You can run the agenda. I think I'll basically, I just want to call out one thing about tomorrow's workstream kickoff, and you can give an update on the iMasons and OCP workstream.
Sure, yeah. So agenda for today, start with announcements and housekeeping as always. Our speaker today, Tom, thanks for joining us, partner at CO2 Efficient. And then we have some group discussions for the remainder of the time. But yeah, Shruti, why don't you kick us off?
Yes. So we wanted to give a shout out for the new workstream that's starting tomorrow, which is carbon accounting for circularity. And Ari and JM, I know JM is not here right now. Ari and JM are both co-leads, and one of the main focus of this work stream is essentially to figure out that when IT equipment are circularly used by the primary owner itself again or by the secondary owner in all of these various scenarios or in recycling scenario, how do we actually account for the carbon benefits, who actually owns what part of the carbon impact, and how does that how doing the circularity accountably give a carbon benefit. So folks can actually start, once this is standardized, folks can start introducing that in their net carbon calculations. So that's the work stream starting tomorrow. So I would, ask all of you folks who would be interested in, figuring out circularity and the accounting related to it. Please join us tomorrow. Starts tomorrow 9 a.m. PST, which is like in 25 hours from now, if that is an easier metric. So in about 25 hours from now. I hope you folks all have the invite on your calendar. And this particular meeting is Thursday morning. I think, Ari, correct me if that's wrong. Likely Thursday morning would be their regular cadence, but I know they intended discussing the cadence once to see if there's some alteration needed. Ari, correct me and feel free to add anything.
Yeah. Thank you, Shruti. And we'll see if tomorrow doesn't work well, we'll search for a better time. But it works for me and it works for John Michael. And thank you for an excellent description. I really have nothing to add there.
Yeah, and so just in terms of historical context, last year, or I guess the year before, this group published the Design for Circularity Guide, focused on what aspects of circularity should product designers keep in mind as they iterate on their engineering and designs. And this is sort of a next step in that process of how do we quantify the carbon impacts of that. Is that fair enough, Ari?
Yes. I mean that's a different dimension. But there's also a regulatory aspect to it. Is to can we work with governments to another other groups to actually do this, where we come up with a formula for carbon accounting that focuses on second use and third use, et cetera.
Next housekeeping item or next work stream to provide update on is our joint project that we have with the iMasons focused on carbon disclosure. So here we have two challenges that we were each pursuing independently between iMasons and OCP to establish some guidelines that advance the comparability of carbon disclosures between one vendor and another, one solution and another. And then on the other hand, recruiting more equipment and solution vendors to the digital infrastructure industry, to the data center industry, to perform that measurement, share that reporting out as part of their bidding processes, inputs into data center design, so that data center operators can then use it in the design and procurement. So we have now a formal collaboration with iMasons, and the first work stream of that formal collaboration is this carbon disclosure project. So we are working now to leverage the work that iMasons did. They have a series of case studies that describe various means and methods for measuring and reporting on embodied carbon of equipment that is sold into data centers. And we're thinking now about what can be done to give data center operators the information they need to put that data in context. So what should vendors to the data center industry be reporting kind of surrounding that one embodied carbon number to say, this is the method that I used, this is the database I used, this is the third party that I worked with to develop this number. And what can we do to pursue this goal of comparability while not waiting too long to just encourage vendors to set a baseline and start reducing. So a lot to be discussed there. We had a kickoff for this project, which was had terrific attendance, and then we've got our next meeting to dig in on the work on the 21st, and we're preparing agenda for that right now. So if you need an invite for that meeting, just reach out to me.
Alex, do we have a package? We have a large sustainability group at Seagate, and we do this through a third party. But I want to kind of present this to that team. Is there like a one-stop shopping link or some package that I can send out to my team?
Since we're very early on, what we have is a charter, and I will share that with you, Ari.
Okay.
So that you can share that out, and then if you've got folks at Seagate who'd like to help us out, would love to have you involved.
Yeah, I mean we actually have methodology, but it's under NDA. We can't share it. But I'd like to start informing my team, and maybe we'll get some great feedback that's not part of the third party documentation.
That's not protected. Yeah, that would be great. Thanks a lot, Ari.
I would appreciate a link to that also.
I'm going to put it in
I'm part
the
of a
chat for this
large.
meeting. Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
I'm part of an ongoing building of sustainability here at Dell, and so I'd like to get a look at that also. We're actually doing a lot of exercise around what you've been discussing here already, and so I'd like to also present that to others and talk about opportunities there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Let me do one thing. Actually, I did put it, on the calendar for everyone who was subscribed to that work stream's, email. So let me actually forward the very first meeting to everyone in sustainability. So then folks can, subscribe for the meetings, can subscribe to that work stream for the meetings.
That'd be great.
Great. Thanks, Shruti. Any other announcements from anyone or housekeeping updates? Just to let everyone know.
Alex, this is CJ. Do you have any quick update on the upcoming OCP Regional Summit, or maybe that happens?
Yeah, I was just about to share, just so that folks know, we are reading through abstracts and proposals in the coming week to set an agenda for the sustainability workstream for that summit. Related to the topic I was just speaking about, we hope to be able to give an update on this joint iMasons OCP carbon disclosure workstream at Lisbon at the regional summit. We submitted a proposal, so we'll see how the schedule works out in terms of that track, and we'll let everybody know once that track is set. Okay, then with that, Tom, thanks so much for joining us. Tom Lawler, again, partner at CO2 Efficient, here to give us some information about the efforts at that organization on guiding USG.
Great, thanks. Good afternoon, morning, all, depending on where everybody is. I actually have a couple of slides just to kind of start the conversation, and then then we can just, have a chat from there. See if this works. All right.
We got it.
All right, now let's see if I can advance this. There we go. All right. So Coefficient, we are a public policy practice here in Washington, D.C. Focused, kind of, it says it in our name, we are focused completely on climate and energy policies. We have a couple of specific work streams that we spend our time on, but in general, we typically kind of work either at the, with the C-suite and talking about corporate advisory and ESG and kind of what is your environmental strategy. We do a lot of stakeholder engagement as well as, development of coalitions, which is actually going to be the biggest part of my conversation today. And then government advocacy. We, I worked on the Hill for a long time. Most of the folks at Coefficient have worked somewhere in the federal government, whether it's at State Department, the White House, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and all these various agencies in between. And so that's, our specialty, I would say, is really thinking about what is the role of government in terms of pushing policies and opportunities for decarbonization and next generation energy. There's 3 coalitions that we manage that have a lot of overlap with each other, as well as with many members of the OCP. And so I just wanted to give you all just a quick kind of rundown of these. Number of y'all are companies are members of one or many of these. The Digital Climate Alliance is a coalition we started in 2019. I think we rolled out a week before the economic shutdown for the pandemic, which actually was a great lesson in the role of digitalization in people's lives. And the intention of the Digital Climate Alliance when we first started was really to bridge the gap between policymakers who work on technology policy and policymakers who work on environmental policy. I managed the Clean Air Nuclear Safety Subcommittee in the Senate for a number of years. And if any of y'all were to come and want to meet with me to talk about all the great things that you're doing from a sustainability or in the tech space, I would tell you I'm the wrong person to talk to, and you need to go talk to the technology policy staffer. And if you went to the technology policy staffer to talk about climate change, they tell you the wrong person to talk to. You need to go talk to Tom about climate change. And so there's continuing to be a huge gulf of ignorance on what technology is. I've spent a lot of my time trying to explain what a digital twin is, that the cloud is actually not water vapor, that it is a data center somewhere, probably in Loudoun County, and what that does. And so that was really kind of the main vision of the DCA, was really kind of proselytizing the opportunities that technology has from a decarbonization perspective. Let's say 2021, Bitcoin mining resource intensity started to get a lot of attention. You saw New York and other places start to put moratoriums on, and people asking a lot of questions about that, and they're still asking those questions. But one of the Senator Whitehouse has put together a bill wanting to look at some reporting requirements, and it raised the question of what's the difference between a cryptocurrency mining operation and a data center. And a lot of people wanted to spend a lot of time trying to explain how a data center was different. We decided to spend our time looking at what is the resource intensity of a data center. What does a sustainable data center look like? We put together a white paper over the course of 2022 and released that in March of 2023. And it was really a discussion about sustainability for data centers. But by March of 2023, anything you had to say about data centers a year or two earlier was obsolete due to the AI revolution, if you will. So we are actually in the process of kind of going back, and we're writing a new white paper on AI and energy, really with that concept of kind of discussing what is the footprint, what is the handprint? And I think there's a lot of conversations to be had about the benefits that can be done from a sustainability perspective of AI, but also people are finally starting to realize the resource intensity of high performance computing. We all know about the challenges for access to power and all those things. So that's a big effort for the Digital Climate Alliance. And just a quick commercial at the end of this month, starting February 26th, in partnership with iMasons, actually, we are hosting a workshop with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, who has been tasked by Congress to develop a report on data center efficiency. It was the 2020 energy bill that told LBNL to write this report, and it's due at the end of 2024. So we've kind of helped put together a group of industry experts to help kind of talk through some of the data challenges and assumptions and how they're going to develop that report. So if anybody's interested, you could go to our website, digitalclimate.io, and look under the events section, and there's a registration and agenda for that workshop. Again, it'll be at UC Santa Barbara at the end of the month. As we've been getting smarter, and I mean, we are definitely, I am a technology enthusiast. I am not a technology expert. So we've been doing a lot of studying, particularly looking at data centers. And one of the things that really became very apparent was the role that liquid cooling can play in enhancing both the sustainability and effectiveness of particularly high performance computing applications such as AI. We came into contact with a number of folks such as Supermicro and Submer and others, and realized that there's currently a perception that liquid cooling is in the lab, and one of the things that we're really trying to do early on with the Liquid Cooling Coalition is to explain that it's not only in the lab. There's fun things to be done there still, but it's also already on the shelf, and it's already being utilized. And so the role of the Liquid Cooling Coalition right now is really just to raise awareness of the opportunities and its availability, and that people need to be thinking about utilizing that, particularly from both an energy intensity perspective, but also from a water intensity perspective. And then finally, the Electricity Customer Alliance is a group that we've actually been managing since 2017, since the coefficient began, and its genesis was, there's a lot of folks here in Washington, D.C. that like to talk about electricity, but when you're actually developing policies, the only people in the room are the utilities, and there's not a coordinated voice representing the electricity customer. And this is specifically large load electricity customers, and so what we do with the ECA is really try and help coordinate and manage a singular electricity customer voice in FERC proceedings, as well as from a policy perspective, and also looking at the role, what's different in an electricity market, a wholesale electricity market, and an RTO versus a vertically integrated utility, and what does that mean in terms of a customer's ability to buy the types of electrons they want, and where they want them and when they want them. As the AI revolution and all that has kind of changed some of our focus, or given us an increased focus on our policies with the Digital Climate Alliance and Liquid Cooling Coalition, the same thing is going on with the Electricity Customer Alliance as well. Access to power is an extremely new concept from a policymaker's perspective. We have been talking for a long time about how to green the grid, and how we just need to replace old dirty electrons with new clean electrons. And nobody has really, or people are just now starting to realize that from a policy perspective, there's a lot of challenges just having enough electrons. let alone what vintage or flavor of electron it is. And so, the Electricity Customer Alliance is really starting to focus a lot on load growth. What does load growth mean from a sustainability perspective? How do we manage, kind of the immediacy when you have particularly data centers trying to be built, and they actually, Dominion in Virginia says you can have your electricity in 2029. We'll see in a few years. And people need their data centers built today. And so what are those, how do we manage that? And so we're actually in the process of holding some conversations about developing a buyer's pool and various other efforts to kind of align, SMR deployment with federal government policies as well as large electricity customers. And I will just finally mention that the Electricity Customer Alliance is obviously, it represents a lot of the large data centers and hyperscalers, but also includes large manufacturing and mining, and which actually it really helps in terms of the way we are messaging, because it's not just about as I'm sure y'all are aware, saying that I need power for my data center. Some people it resonates with, some people they don't care, honestly. But talking about the manufacturing renaissance in the U.S. and onshoring and the opportunities for economic growth throughout, for car manufacturers, for mining, for pulp and paper, as well as for technology, that is a pretty strong voice, and we've seen it's definitely allowed us to open up a lot of doors and have a lot of really interesting conversations. So finally, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about kind of like what's going on in DC today from the perspective of digitalization. I think a lot of people, the hype about AI has made it to Capitol Hill. Senator Schumer intends to have an AI package put together and moved through Congress this year. And if anybody opens a paper, you realize that not a whole lot is actually moving through Congress this year. Everybody's trying to find ways to disagree rather than ways to agree. But I think the AI package, at least in concept, is going to maybe be that unicorn that a lot of people are going to want to be part of. So there's a lot of people that recognize the promise of digitalization, but there's also a lot of people that want to talk about the peril of them, particularly from not only from Skynet's going to take over the world, but also the challenges from the environmental perspective. Senator Markey from Massachusetts, along with Senator Heinrich from New Mexico, Congresswoman Eshoo, and Congressman Beyer, all put out a bill two weeks ago titled Environmental Impacts of Artificial Intelligence Act of 2024. I might have Artificial Intelligence Environmental Impacts Act of 2024. And they ask a whole lot of questions, and they task EPA with developing a study on what is the footprint of the cooling for AI, what is the footprint of the equipment for AI, what is the footprint, and when I talk footprint, not just carbon, they specifically want to know about all pollution, and as well as water intensity. They also ask EPA to study what are the beneficial opportunities that AI can present from an environmental impact perspective. That's I think that from a policy perspective in DC right now, I think members are really just trying to figure out what questions are the right questions to ask. I think most know they don't have all the answers. What's funny is, like Senator Markey put out a bill and he's like, oh, we're going to ask all these questions, and we're going to be a big leader on this. And then I met with his staff last week to talk about this bill, and they had no idea that Lawrence Berkeley National Lab had been tasked with essentially doing a study similar to this in 2020, and we're helping them write that. And then finally, I'll just kind of point out that there is kind of generally, whenever Congress puts out a bill that says they want to kind of make an industry in this perspective, data centers start reporting on energy usage or their impacts, there's usually some sort of a backlash, and people talk about kind of what that would mean in terms of security and safety and business confidential business information. That's the way that the cryptocurrency miners have kind of responded to a number of requests for information. And so they, as I mentioned, they've kind of been ahead of kind of the tip of the spear on these policy inquiries. And in January, as in last month, the Energy Information Agency sent out a number of surveys to cryptocurrency miners, and they were mandated by law to respond to these and provide all of their energy usage data. And so now there's a whole, fun, game to be played about whether or not, who's going to go to court and all that fun stuff. But that is a very adversarial place to be. And, when we are working with our members of the DCA or the LCC or the Electricity Customer Alliance, we really do try and work from a collaborative approach with policymakers and try and help them ask the right questions, help them kind of, we share the mission of the role of increasing the value of decarbonization from digitalization, as well as reducing its footprint. And so, I'll just finally say, and then we can have a conversation, is that, these questions aren't going away. They're actually increasing more and more, which is a great opportunity for us to do a lot of education. And I think it's going to continue. Metrics continues to be the big solution to all of these questions, but what are the right metrics is I think a big challenge. In that 2020 energy bill that had Lawrence Berkeley National Lab develop these reports, the DOE was also actually told to develop some performance metrics for sustainability. And we were having a conversation with a couple of folks in government agencies yesterday, and those metrics that DOE developed, they were rejected by the Office of Management and Budget because they were not usable or meaningful. So, really smart people in government have been trying to work on metrics, and they are still trying to figure out how to develop that. All right, that's let me see if I can figure out how to. There's my email address. Love to, if you want to reach out and have further conversations, or you're interested in participating in any, all, or some of the coalitions that we work with, or just work with us individually, I would love to have that conversation with you, obviously. All right, right there, I'll take a breath and see if anybody has any questions or comments.
I'll throw out a question, if that's all right. And thank you so much for the presentation, Tom. Great insight. I mean, as boring as it might be, I do happen to tune in for those Senate hearing committees, right? For Senator Barrasso and Manchin on energy and natural resources. And I think it's important, to understand what's going on in the policy space. So thank you for giving us a really kind of broad view of what's going on. I think what's interesting is some of the timelines in those discussions when it comes to nuclear, when it comes to mining, other industry things that are affecting companies that are on this call. For example, Microsoft, right, has a goal of 2030. There's a giant amount of energy and resources being poured into that, but it doesn't seem to align perfectly with the policy makers. So how are you seeing, and I guess where is that happening, where the timelines are being, I think right now they're kind of being realized, but where do you see, or where can we go for those timeline updates? I think that would be important.
Well, I think one of the challenges in this space is that there isn't a singular cohesive policy. Right? We tried to do a big climate bill, a couple of decades ago, and Once that crashed and burned, nobody's come back to try and do like a singular a kind of policy. The one that the most recent policy that was kind of climate oriented policies was the Inflation Reduction Act, right? And that bill, I don't want to that bill was what they call a budget reconciliation package, which is a little bit different than a typical bill becoming a law. And there's a lot of reasons behind that, but essentially it was a pathway for Democrats, when we had the House, the Senate, and the White House, to be able to kind of jam through a certain number of policies. But that process had a lot of limitations on it, right? And so the limitations on it were really, it had to be about spending or tax changes, and there really couldn't be a whole lot of new policies. So that what's been done through the IRA was dictated by kind of essentially Senate rules and budget reconciliation package. So it's when, so that's when you have a 10-year window to spend, you need to have this done. And the amount of policy that they were able to write in terms of how those monies were going to be utilized or done was very small. So you saw a whole lot, here's $10 billion, go do some climate changey stuff, versus a typical bill that's like, here's our findings, here's the outcomes, here's what we want to develop. We don't have that right now. So a lot of it is kind of, one-off type of approaches. And that's where you get, weird timelines, and it's what can we accomplish? What do I have budget for? So I'm only going to do this for 2 years versus 10 years and things of that sort.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Appreciate your perspective. Hope that was helpful.
Well, I mean, I think that maybe to follow on that is that's where corporate leadership has really stepped into the void in terms of our lack of policy, and that, y'all telling your story, you guys sitting here talking about what's the next step in terms of embodied carbon. There's embodied carbon work being done at EPA, at the General Services Administration. They need to hear what you guys are doing. Because you're doing a lot of the thinking that nobody else has been doing. So hearing kind of the technical and kind of the expertise that you bring to it and how that's being applied, that is really, really helpful to kind of make sure that they know. So when they get tasked with something, they aren't starting from scratch and they don't know who to call and what to do. Trudy.
Just a very quick follow-up on that. So I understand you're saying, like, hearing about what effort is being done in tech, etc., is helpful. In terms of, actionable steps, what is it that tech can, do in order to, so that government policies are helped, like very actionable steps kind of thing? Sorry. Was somebody?
I found another love note. Thank you.
David, thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What are the discrete actionable steps? And then I lost you on that one. Steps for what?
So what are the very actionable steps that tech can actually do so that, these government policies are helped? I understand overall, the government policies knowing about tech's initiative is good, but in terms of steps that can be actually implemented or taken immediately, could you describe something?
Yeah, well, immediately is always the biggest challenge. Congress, does not move fast, and particularly this year going into an election, I've kind of described there's kind of 3 things that Congress is going to do. They're going to grandstand. They're going to have fire drills, the things that just come up and they have to deal with, and it might be actual wildfires or things of that sort. Ukraine, and then there's a couple of must-pass things. And just because it's a must-pass bill doesn't mean that Congress will actually pass it, as you see with all the drama about government shutdowns and things of that sort. But what we try and do is look at those, those moments, whether it's be prepared for those moments. So if there's a fire drill and let's say there's a big challenge on Colorado River water rights, and and it's too low and they're having challenges with water usage. Do we as a group, whether it's the Digital Climate Alliance, and is there an opportunity to go in and talk about new ways and policies that could be utilized to reduce the water usage at a data center? And can a data center actually find ways to kind of reduce their water usage and get credit for it? If there's a must-pass bill, the National Defense Authorization Act last year, which is actually a bill that's just focused supposedly about kind of authorizing, our armed forces. But embedded in that was the Data Center Enhancement Act of 2023, which is a focus on U.S. government data centers and tasking the General Services Administration with actually developing performance metrics for their data centers, and applying those metrics and trying to figure out how to improve their utilization. A number of data centers that the U.S. has are utilized have like a 20% utilization rate. And so they're just wasting a lot of space and time and electricity. So, those are the opportunities to kind of be strategic. And then finally, the last thing is that there are a number of voluntary programs. Even within EPA, you have data center efficiency and various other metrics that are really great ways for OCP types of groups to kind of show up and say, we're working on a new metric for embodied carbon. EPA, you've developed one for on embodied carbon, and let's work together on making sure that our accounting is standardized. Can you put together, because EPA putting out a guide on embodied carbon accounting is already kind of sets the standard versus one group doing it one way, another group doing it another. So those are ways that you could really bring a lot of the work that you're doing and get it quote standardized or get it raised up to a broader audience.
You're saying co-standardizing would help some of these, because like the last point that you mentioned, that's I think personally a major pain point for me, the lack of standardizing in the methodology. So like co-standardizing these things would certainly help. Thank you.
Yeah. And also, is it possible to share what are the different metrics that you are interested in, at least kind of useful for you?
I guess the question is, what is a useful metric? And so, I know everybody wants to talk about PUE. I think, that's the one that this industry, particularly the data center industry, is most familiar with. I think a lot of folks are starting to realize it doesn't really capture the full universe of opportunity, and from a sustainability perspective. And I think this industry has shown a propensity for a race to the top. You get a metric, you get a target, and you guys, can try and out-compete each other to try and meet that metric or exceed it. And so, thinking about what are the places where there's a lot of room for improvement. And so, there's water, there's WUE, there's CUE. And I guess my question, it might be easier to hear from you, Sammy, or others, which metric is going to kind of incent that race to the top, and actually be useful.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think we need to kind of finalize our list and probably share with this team and get some feedback on what is really going to be interesting for a government side, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think we have a couple of areas of concern. Hi again, Tom. one of them is kind of the prioritized, what are the most impactful metrics, which is, I think, more, Tom, what you were asking about. And then more near and dear to our heart is, what is an effective way to define that kind of disambiguates what it captures and how it's generated, so that we get normative behavior, rather than gaming of the system. Because we're trying to balance kind of three things, right? The magnitude of the impact, how definitive and effective such a metric is, and then how onerous it is to generate it and track it, right? And I think what we're seeing in the EU is they try to lead the way here with getting some legislation actually passed and mandating some reporting starting just this May in a couple of months, right? If you're not in the industry, it's very easy to generate something that sounds reasonable, but it's a huge pain and won't do that much good, right? Like, one of the elements of the EED has to do with data bits transmitted in and out of the data center, as if that was useful, right? And I would contend it's not particularly useful for a couple of reasons, right? First, the network tends to burn almost all the same power, whether there's bits on the wire or not, right? So that the energy on the network is not proportional to how much it's utilized, and utilizing it doesn't, trying to increase utilization doesn't actually help anything. And then second, I think what they're really concerned about is the data footprint, right? How much data is stored in the data center, which actually isn't addressed and isn't in any way proportional to the traffic in and out of the data center, really. Arguably, a CDN generates probably the most bits per second, but it doesn't have the most storage and it doesn't do the most processing. So what is it we're trying to reduce, right?
Right. Yeah, and Eric, I think that question right there is probably it should be rather evident. That's where you should start. What are we trying to reduce? What are we trying to accomplish? And somehow or another, that's not where we start. And so it's like, what can I measure? And then how can I pretend that that's a surrogate for something else?
Right. Yeah, well, and I think so. Obviously, I'm assuming that there's good faith in most of the actors. I know that's not always the case, but if we're actually trying to make a difference, how would we come at this? And just to get out of the rabbit hole there, certainly on liquid cooling, OCP is very interested. We've got a lot of, a big part of the liquid cooling ecosystem engaged with OCP. This isn't the liquid cooling working group, right? But the sustainability aspects of liquid cooling do get talked about here, obviously, right? And so that's where the two would meet, and where the three of us would meet. Obviously, you have work on liquid cooling legislation. We have work on its sustainability, and then there's a group that's working on its efficacy and effective ways to implement it for a rational cost. And then we get into the real geekishness of material compatibility and energy associated with handling the liquid, right? You don't want to train all your fan energy for impellers moving liquid and claim that you did something good from a power perspective. So there's real work going on there that should be in some way linked, right? I'm not sure what the best collaboration model would be, but it seems like on these metrics, I'd like to be engaged with our government too, not just the European government. I don't even live there, right? But if we're kind of coming at this, whoever's leading the charge, if no one has a better thing to do, they're likely to align to that, at least as a start. So we're trying to stay in front of this. It would be nice to be proactive here within the U.S. as well. I'm still not clear on the best way to do that. As you said, for lots of reasons you've already touched on, engaging with Congress isn't particularly attractive, but
it can be frustrating sometimes. But particularly, this came up a lot as we were standing up the Liquid Cooling Coalition, because I know that y'all, particularly OCP, is doing a lot of work on kind of the technical aspects of liquid cooling. I know the Green Grid has been working on some new metrics to try and capture liquid cooling, and that's not what we do, right? But the challenge is that how do we get all the stuff that y'all are doing and get it to policymakers so they understand it and they know how to leverage it. And I think that that's kind of where, you know, Coefficient could provide a good opportunity to try and coordinate with y'all. You know, obviously Intel is a member of the Digital Climate Alliance, and you know, that's why you brought us into here. And I'd love to find ways for us to be, you know, kind of have a more formal way of communication. So, you know, I'm not the smart one on this call, right? So how do we get like the people that are smart and understand these things and get that information so that I can convey it to, you know, the other non-smart people here in DC?
Yeah, I think that's just a good area for us to follow up, right? I think the questions that Sammy was driving at, you know, particularly, you know, obviously there's not one definition of performance, and it can be very onerous to do performance metrics, but some amount of, you know, what are you doing with the energy? The amount of work generated per watt should go up over time. We could just agree on, you know, some collective definition of work, right? And the amount of energy that does not do any work should be reduced over time. So we are trying to, from inside the infrastructure, define metrics that make sense to measure those things so that they could be reported. And then in theory, obviously, like you say, we try to optimize those as fast as we can. That is what this ecosystem does, right? And it would make sense, obviously, to one role potentially for policy, right, is to make the changes necessary to measure those things something that has to be done, right? That becomes a cost of doing business for everyone, and then trying to obsolete the really horrible equipment, right? By these metrics, putting some motivation and some financial incentive in place, right, to do better would help, right? I think in terms of getting somewhere faster. And so again, obviously, we'd like to focus on the things that have the biggest impact. So I think there are areas for us where to get information back and forth, right? How are things going there? When are we going to be subjected to what? And it obviously be very useful to most of the companies here to not have to go engage directly, to engage indirectly through somebody like, you know, a company like Coefficient, right? So that there's a way to be plugged in without a whole bunch of people who aren't going to be very helpful in that environment, spending a lot of time just trying to be present in case something happens, right? That's, you know, we're trying to generate leverage here, I think, as well.
Ari?
Yes, I mean, I think there's a lot of focus on compute here, but storage is a huge part of TCCO, total cost of carbon ownership, both embodied carbon and then during the life of drives. You'd be surprised at what the ratio is on the storage side. I know the focus is on AI and you know, compute right now. And the other thing I wanted to kind of ask the crowd is, you know, we have a Seagate Government Solutions Group, and these are folks who are paid by Seagate, but they have kind of an independent role where they work with the government, and that most of them have top secret clearance. The focus has been on security, so I work closely with them because that's my other role is security. And I'm wondering, I mean, this is a great conversation, but I'm wondering if we're missing out on the sustainability side, because we really don't have a focus there with that group. So I'd like to get your thoughts, Tom.
You know, and I hope this doesn't sound pejorative, but yeah, most of y'all's companies have a big presence in Washington, D.C. And your government affairs offices have, you know, are in or your business units are you know, focused on selling, and or from a government affairs perspective, playing a lot of defense, whether it's trade, whether it's antitrust, whether it's, you know, various other tech, very core things to your company's mission. And so, you know, and that's one of the reasons why we started the Digital Climate Alliance, is that there wasn't a tech group in DC whose sole mission was to talk about the role of sustainability and how to lean in on it. So yeah, I would say yes, that the sustainability piece is maybe it's on the list of talking points, but it's not at the top. And it's usually just used as a way to kind of tell everybody, hey, look how good we are. So give us a pass on this side or that side. And it's not the focus. That is generically, that is very true. I think that the circularity piece is a great one that I've seen in the chat, people talking about it. I helped Senator Carper stand up the recycling caucus in the Senate, I guess back in 2006 or so. And nobody, circular economy wasn't a phrase back then, but it was really about trying to improve the infrastructure around recycling. Now everybody wants to talk about recycling the car batteries. And again, there is a huge space to kind of lean in and kind of show up and say, we've got this big challenge. We also know that a lot of this equipment has some really important either ways to be reused or kind of remined, if you will, for the materials. And we need to start thinking about kind of whether it's the R&D at DOE or it's just the infrastructure necessary to kind of start reclaiming that that's a whole stream of engagement that doesn't exist right now from a public policy perspective. And I would think that there's a lot of opportunity to really start thinking through what is the role of government, right? What are the barriers to really kind of recapturing a lot of that equipment? And is there a way that government can make that? Is it costs? Is it infrastructure? Is, all those types of things are ways that we try and help kind of think through, where those different levers are and how we can pull them.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I'll reach out to you on the side. I don't want to take up time in this meeting, but thank you.
Great, thanks. All right, finally, again, I'll just reemphasize, we have this workshop with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab on data center efficiency in 2 weeks. It's I'm pretty excited to kind of see it come together. I know y'all probably know John Toomey and Armand Shahabi and Eric Massonet. They're all going to be participating in this group. And obviously iMasons is helping us put together, get some of the speakers. It's going to be a workshop. It is not going to be a conference. So if you're interested in showing up and bringing ideas and being part of the conversation, I think right now we have 45 people participating. The Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House reached out and they want to participate. So I don't know how many people they're going to bring. But this would be I would encourage you, if you're in the area or you want to go to Santa Barbara in February, to look it up. And I can share the link, or like I said, digitalclimate.io is the website, and you go to the events page and it's the very top one. Thanks again for inviting.
Tom.
Yeah.
Thank you to the Coefficient team.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. And I think I will be there. I think at the Santa Barbara conference, and so will our corporate sustainability officer for Intel. So one thing we can do, Shruti, I think is come back. After that workshop, we'll probably know a lot more. We'll be able to hash through some of the details of things that we're working on and places that potentially we could be connected. We'll maybe be able to hash out a better proposal for how to start. And maybe some of the places that we could be collaborative with each other, right, and help each other generate leverage on sustainability. So this was more of an intro call, and I appreciate the discussion, Tom, on what you guys are already up to. That helps, right, in terms of giving us context from which to scheme.
Sure. You can do a debrief after the conference.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, I'll do we'll put together a kind of a readout and I'll work with Eric on kind of conveying that to y'all. All right. Thanks again for having me on. Have a good day.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks.
Yeah, and Schneider will be there also. Unfortunately, I have a long planned vacation in 2 weeks, but a couple of my data center solution architect colleagues who specialize in sustainability will be there. So I definitely encourage all who are interested. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to make real progress with government at the table. So
Very
we had
good.
only one other item on our agenda, which I think we're going to table for another meeting, which is to discuss the criteria that we have for evaluating sustainability when new specs and projects are brought to OCP. We have a series of criteria that we established the year before last, but we want to make sure that those continue to grow in their demand and accountability. So we can talk about that next time. Any other items or points that anyone wants to raise before we close the call?
If anybody's interested, there's opportunities to do new technology for how the computers work that will cut the power a lot. And there may be money in the CHIPS Act to drive that.
Thanks, Kevin. Let's connect on that over email, and then maybe we can make that a topic of conversation in a subsequent monthly meeting.
Sure.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day or night. We'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, folks.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Alex.